about how thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to demonstrate my research and to demonstrate my thinkings and thoughts, ideas about how my previous research can be combined with the library and information science at ESU and at SLIM. So first, a short self-introduction. My name is Hao He. I got my PhD from the University of Missouri, and my previous major was information science and learning technologies. And I am currently the latest assistant professor at the School of Library and Information Management at ESU. And my previous history, I got my BA in English language and literature in 2008. After that, I became an English teacher. And meanwhile, I was also an educational project manager. After 7 years of doing teaching, and I came to the United States, I pursued my Master of Education in Educational Technology at the University of Missouri. And then starting in 2017, at the same university, I started my PhD in learning design and technology program. And I got my PhD in this July, and now I'm the new faculty member at SLIM. So some hobbies about me: I like gaming, swimming, hiking, and animal photography. Yeah. So this is me, and this is the table of contents today. So first, I will present 4 of my previous VR-related research projects, and then I will talk about how I think VR might be applied or integrated into the teaching or research at SLIM. And then I think we will have 5 to 10 minutes to do a Q&A or an additional discussion. All right, so let's go to the first research project. It was a VR graduation ceremony. I have already presented some of my previous research projects at my job talk. So SLIM faculty members may have already seen some of these research projects, but I try to give you some different information from my presentation. So the first one was a VR graduation ceremony. We created this graduation ceremony during the pandemic, during the first year of the pandemic, which was the spring 2020 that semester. So this is an overview of the entire VR graduation ceremony. As you can see, we put a red carpet on the lawn, and then we put some chairs there, and there are people sitting on these chairs. So every VR person is a real person behind that. So we invited more than 30 faculty members and graduating students to attend this VR graduation ceremony. As you can see here, they are just sitting there, and there is a person standing on the stage and giving a graduation address. So we, as I said, we invited 30 people to attend, more than 30 people, but actually we finally had about 27 faculty members and students attended this VR graduation ceremony. And this was our dean. She was giving a address, and this is a group photo. And I mean, after the activity, everybody just went onto the stage and took a picture there, face to the camera, and took a picture there. So as you can see, this is there are a lot of people standing there. And then, I mean, this is a overview from the night, from the air. This is a night view. As you can see, we created the graduation ceremony happened here, and around the graduation ceremony, there are 5 different buildings: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 different buildings. So each of this building is for a department. And so that means we not only have the graduation ceremony on the lawn, but also have some separate activities arranged in each departments buildings. So like for our department, which is the learning design and technology, after the graduation ceremony, people can go to our department and there will be a signature wall. So they can use their mouse or keyboard to write down their names on the signature wall. And there are also a photo gallery or picture gallery in the VR environment. There is a photo gallery recording the history of the department. So the participants can take a review of their department's history and that. So just arrange some things of that. So this project is just for the graduation ceremony during the pandemic. And we did not do much research on it. It's more like a practice project. Yeah. So this is the first one, and the second one is a more research-oriented, and it's also about teaching, about practicing students' skills. The second one is a VR, virtual reality patient encounter, or we also call it a VR clinic. So first, let me explain the term patient encounter. Patient encounter is a conversational interactions between a patient and a healthcare provider, usually a doctor or a nurse, for the doctor or the nurse to learn what happened on the patient or the patient's situation, and then determine the appropriate treatments. So in our project, we use the VR technology on first-year nursing students. So these nursing students will do their first patient encounter test. They will experience their first patient encounter test after the first month of their nursing learning at the School of Nursing. Yeah. So this is very quick. So some students may feel pressured. Oh, I have to take a test after just 1 month of learning. So we provided such a VR space for them to practice their patient encounter conversation skills, so that they can be, like their anxieties might be relieved, and their conversation skills can be practiced. At least don't let them forget what kind of questions they're supposed to ask when they meet the real patient. Right. So we collaborated with the School of Nursing and created a virtual clinic room. So here you can see these two pictures. I can zoom. Let me see if I can zoom in. Oh, I cannot zoom in. On the left side is the real clinic room. So you can see we have a chair, we have a desk, we have a water sink, we have like computers, cabins here. And on the right side is the VR clinic. So you see, you will also see a chair, the desk, the water sink, the disinfecting, the wipes, right? So I can show. I open the could you tell me, can you see this the current window that I'm sharing? Okay, so this is the VR environment. This is the environment that we created for the VR patient encounter test practice. So you can see we have A, B, and then we have a C, D, different buildings. So inside each building, there is a test field. You will see there are different test rooms, number 1, number 2, and after these 2 numbers, there will be 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go to number 1 and see what will happen. Then if you Okay, so follow the camera, you will see we have the things, we have everything here, right? So we have the chairs, we have the computers and things. So this is very similar, maybe not a 100% same, but very similar to what the students will see in the real test rooms. And then on the chair, if I click on the chair, there will be a virtual avatar, which we call them non-character player NPC will show up, and if I open this window, there will be the conversation logs. The text might be small, but I will help you. I will let you know the general idea. So starting from now on, the student can type to talk with the virtual patient. Like, let me try to say, Hi, my name is Hao. Nice to meet you. Yeah. And then the virtual patient will wave at me and it's also reply, okay, replies to me like good morning, my pleasure, have a good day. You might notice that the conversation seems a little weird because the virtual avatar works based on keywords. So only the right keywords will hit the correct responses. So if I typed too much and my keyword hit triggered a farewell response, then it will say like have a good day at the very beginning of the conversation. Yeah. So let's say what brought you here today? And you will see there is a silent from nothing returned from the avatar because it is keyword based, right? So, and if the keyword did not trigger anything, then there will be nothing returned to us. So this also made the participants a little bit frustrated at when they do not ask the right questions. So let's say, how are you feeling today? Okay, and now the NPC just gave some reply. I'm not feeling well. I feel down, and my supervisor is not happy about this. And then I can continue ask what happened. Right. Well, my back is in great pain right now. So from now on, the a student is started to get the information from the patient. The patient said, "Oh, my back is in great pain." And then, as a nursing student, the student should go deeper into this question and ask, "When did this happen?" or "Where your pain where is your pain exactly on your back?" Yeah, so just ask question like this, like when did this happen? Okay, so okay, uh, let me add, when did it start? Okay, it said, I think it started this morning while I tried to move a patient at the nursing home. So just ask these questions like how you would rate your pain on a 1 to 10 scales, and did you do anything to help you make it better? Or were there anything that will make you feel even bad or even worse when you do those things? So this is the general idea of how this VR patient encounter conversation practice happened between the student, the nursing student, uh, and the virtual patient. So totally, we had 83 nursing students attended our VR patient encounter. And then they conversed with a virtual avatar patient like here. So on here, you'll see this is the left picture is the short demonstration that I just showed you in the VR environment. And then here, this is a real patient encounter test that happened between a nursing student and an actor. This is an actor, not a real patient, just an actor. Okay, the actor played as a patient, and yeah. So here you can see how the students interacted with the. Let me see if I can play it. Yeah, so this is how the student interacted with the virtual patient. The student just typed on the keyboard, and you will see there is a piece of paper. This is a cheat sheet. There are some questions prepared for the students so that the students can remember what kind of questions they are supposed to ask. There are different types of questions, including greeting questions and then clinical questions. So they are supposed to ask at least 15 questions to get at least 15 points so that to pass their test. Yeah. So this is what we did in this. Okay, let me see. All right. So some findings. We found that their self-efficacy or their confidence in succeeding in the patient encounter test increased after they practiced the virtual environment. We had 83 students participated in our VR patient encounter practice. And we also had 47 students who chose not to participate in this VR practice. And finally, we compared their VR patient encounter test performance, which were the scores rated by their instructors. And the VR group students, the students who participated in the VR practice, scored much higher, significantly higher than the students who did not participated in the VR practice. And then their motivation to use the VR technology to maintain such kind of a VR practice before they go into the real patient encounter test was remained at a higher level, which means that they had a high motivation before and after they experienced the VR patient encounter practice. And then the students really would like to have more VR practice. And if the if the virtual patient can provide more diverse responses, because currently, as I said, the VR patient just works on the keywords. So the students would really like to have more diverse questions, like when we ask a question to ChatGPT. So our future direction is that to connect the virtual avatars to an LLM, which means a large language model like ChatGPT or like Google's Cloud. And we are actually already engaged in the work of that, trying to expand the conversation ability of our VR avatars. All right, so these are the VR patient encounter project. And the third one is a little different. I mean, the VR form is a little different. It's a cave-based meteorology class. So cave, first we need to know something about cave. Cave means cave automatic virtual environments. So it's not a small thing. It's even, I mean, the entire cave system is even larger than our cars. It's a room-sized thing. So just like that, this one, or as you can see here, this is a room-like thing. So we have 3 walls and there is a floor. So there are digital projectors on its ceiling. So these projectors will project 3D visual content on the walls and on the floors. And for users, they have to wear 3D glasses to view the 3D content on the walls or on the floors. So this is actually very much like when we go to a movie theater to watch a 3D movie, we have to wear a 3D glasses, right? So cave is just like watching a 3D movie in a theater. So for the hardware and software, we use the Unity 3D to create our VR environment, and then we because Unity cannot directly input the 3D content into the cave, so we need a bridge technology to bridge Unity and the cave. So we use the middle VR to bridge the things, so that middle VR help us to input the 3D content produced by Unity 3D and then display in the cave. All right, so as you can see, this is what we created for the students in this cave-based project. Because this is a meteorology class, so our learning content was around a important concept in meteorology, which is the middle latitude cyclone. And we chose to use this topic as our learning content because this topic requires a lot of abstract thinking or abstract visualization in students' minds if they I mean, when they did not have this kind of a cave or a 3D visualization technologies. So we created a map. We 3D modeled a map of the continuous 48 states of the United States for undergraduate meteorology students. And then, as you can see from the pictures, there are like some like red arrows, blue arrows, and yellow arrows showing the directions of conveyor belts above the U.S. continent. And there are different colors, like here, you will see different colors, blue colors and red colors, showing the cold and warm fronts. And we also created special weather effects, such as like thunders, snows, or rains, or even sunshines at different locations on the map, and the corresponding sound effect. So students could hear the sound of a thunder, the sound of a wind, the sound of a snow. Yeah, so we used this kind of different weather effects, sound effect, audio effect, visual effect, to help students to give them a more immersive learning experience. And the entire 3D modeling, programming, debugging, and testing work took us 10 months. 10 months, almost 1 year to complete the entire, including the hardware building and the software creation. And then, so in this cave VR environment, we had 21 meteorology students. This is just our first round. And we are also planning more rounds of data collection in next March and April. So we will have we are expected to have another 30 or 40 students by the end of next spring semester. And then we collected both quantitative and qualitative data. And I'm not going to dig deep into the data part, but let me just show you how this cave VR looks like. So you can see the instructor was wearing a 3D glasses, and there are some antennas. So the digital camera will detect the positions of these antennas to determine the correct positions and proportions of the 3D visual content on the walls. Yeah. So the good thing is that the participants can use their controllers to move freely, to explore as they want in this VR environment. They can fly high, they can fly low, go to the ground, walk on the US continent, or fly in the air, and they can go to different weather, different weather phenomena. So they can fly into a storm, they can fly into the cloud to see what happened, and to understand what make all these meteorological phenomena happen. Yeah. So for our students, they got a marginally significant knowledge increase after they used this cave-based VR training. A marginally significant knowledge increase, by using marginal, we means that their knowledge level was already high, and they just got a slight increase in the knowledge test before and after the cave-based VR training. And however, their qualitative perceptions were more positive. They perceived their learning experience and gains more positively than what their quantitative data showed us. And then the cave also lowered the students' cognitive load and enhanced their engagement, sense of presence, and a sense of immersion. Because before the cave, before they got the access of cave, they had to imagine all these meteorological events in their mind. Although the instructors would give them some like 3D maps or 3D pictures to help them to understand. But the most of the works are still built in their mind. So they have to use their brain to imagine how those meteorological or weather events look like. But with the help of a cave, when inside the cave just because it is 3D, it is a VR environment. So the environment just give them the kind of visualization. So they do not have to visualize all these weather events in their mind. So that lower their cognitive loads and give them more time to understand how everything happened, how this happened, how that happened. So they felt that like they learned better in the inside the cave environment. Yeah, and more other findings and implications. So from the current research project, we believe that we have to offer more interactivities and more student-led activities and collaborative tasks to do. I mean, to be honest, the immersion, the sense of immersion inside the cave was no match to the VR goggles. I mean, a lot of students and also including the instructors, they indicate that the immersion feel was no match when they wear a HMD, a head-mounted VR goggles. But the good thing is that students can collaborate easily inside the cave environment because it's an open space. Oh, sorry. Because it's an open space, so people can see each other. Sorry. I thought I put another picture inside. Oh, wow. Why? Yeah, because the students can see each other, so and they can even touch each other, so that they can collaborate with each other easily. So Cave is a very good good technology for students to perform collaborative learning tasks. And then in our current Cave-based class settings, the instructor was the only person who controlled everything. Students did not have the chance to control the or to interact with the VR environment. So in our future research and teaching practices, we would provide more student-led activities so that the students can lead the activities and to explain or to demonstrate their understanding by showing the instructors how different weather events formed or how those events will develop into another weather event. Yeah. Okay, the last one that I'm going to show you is called Immersive VR Lab. This was the most advanced VR project that we have ever done in our current research team. And this is also a really, and it took us a really long time. We start to develop the VR environment since 2019, since spring 2019. That was before the COVID pandemic. And then we collected our first round of data in spring 2023, this spring. So it took us 4 years to develop and to optimize the current VR systems. So what we did, the project aimed to create a photolithography lab to help electrical engineering students practice their microfabrication operation skills before going to a real physical lab. So here you may notice that you heard two terms. The first term is a photolithography. That is using the ultraviolet laser to draw or quote unquote draw or sculpt on a microsilicon chip. And microfabrication, this is another term that means to print electronic circuits on a microsilicon chip. So as you can see on the pictures on the right side, so here at the center of the picture, this is a micro silicon chip. We put it on the tray, and then after that, we will push the tray back into the machine, which is called a mask aligner. Then in the mask aligner, there will be a beam of ultraviolet laser. Then it will print the circuits on this microsilicon chip. So this is actually what we want to train the students to do in the VR before we send them into the real physical lab. Because in the real physical lab, this machine, this mask aligner, the machine is quite expensive. It's more than $300,000. And the professor was not the professor was reluctant to allow students without any training to use or practice on such an expensive machine. So that's why we created a VR lab, a training project to help the students get familiar with the procedures, with the operations of how to use, how to operate on this machine. And in our first round, we collected data from 20 students. That means 20 students got to practice in this VR environment. And we also collected both qual and quant data. Yeah, and here is the I'm going to show you two demonstration videos of a I mean, it's like a comparison video. So you will see what they will do in the real lab. The real lab operation was performed by a research assistant. And then in the VR lab, what they will do. Let's first play the real lab operations. So you will see the research assistant first use a air gun to clean up. Oh, sorry, I think there is a sound. I should reshare my screen. And now I think you can hear the sound. Okay, then, so the research assistant just put the micro silicon chip on the center of this machine is called a spin coder. And then the assistant will press some buttons to select the correct recipe to spin the microchip set. Yeah. And then in the VR practice, what we do is like this. We will go to pick up the tweezer and to pick up the silicon wafer. And then we move to the spin coder and put the wafer on the spin coder, and we will also press those buttons on the screen. Yeah, so this is actually what we do in the VR practice. So this is like a one-on-one comparison between these two operations. Oh, sorry. And here is another comparison video to show you what we do at the mask aligner here. So first in the real lab, after a timed cooling,
take the wafer to expose it and then these things.
We'll move it to the mask aligner, pull out the drawer, and then we put the wafer at the center of the tray.
Make sure the wafer is sitting well on the chunk.
All right, we press some buttons on the console. All right, and then we will push the drawer back to the machine.
Inside the machine. And then
yeah, so this is what we did in the real lab, and in the VR lab, we did it like this. Pick up the tweezer.
I might be able to still do this.
Pick up the wafer. All right, the drawer has already been pulled out, and then we will drop it on the, yeah, at the center of the tray. All right, and we will press some buttons.
So put it in there.
The student just hesitated about the steps in the video because she was not completely sure. And here you can see we have the clipboard. The clipboard is to help the student to remember what the correct sequence is, because the sequence is very important. You should not make them wrong, because if you make one step wrong, then everything is not correct. Yeah. So this is what we help the students to train in the VR. All right. Yeah. So the general findings, we have already collected data, but we haven't analyzed our data extensively. So I can only give you some general findings. So the first finding is that the students, they like the VR practice, the IVR lab project. They think this VR project give them a more, empowered them to practice their skills, learn from the learn from the class, because they were undergraduate students, and before we had this VR project, the undergraduate students were not allowed to go into the professor's lab because only graduate level students are allowed to do so, because the professor just did not want the students to just to break those machines, those expensive devices. But with this VR practice, the professor believed that the students were prepared to go into the real physical lab to get a real to get a real test. So the students were excited about this kind of practice, and also excited about the real practice. And then their performance in the real lab was enhanced after the IVR lab practice. This is the most exciting finding that we found in our test. And then we are also working on papers, like research papers, and do that. And then in our future lab, project, we will of course include more students, and we want to collect another round of 20 or 40 students, and then in the next, also in next April, so that will enhance our data validity and reliability. And then let's talk about, since I have already demonstrated 4 of my research projects, let's talk about some things that we can apply, how we can apply VR in SLIM. I have listed 5 potential applications of using VR in SLIM or at ESU. The first one is a VR-enabled instructional design course. This is something that I demonstrated to my SLIM colleagues at my job talk. So at the University of Missouri, we created a VR-enabled instructional design course, something like this. This is a final VR project, a VR final project presentation. So, in this course, the students just they learn something about VR, they learn concepts, they learn the learning theories, and then they also practice the like operations using a VR tools. They learned how to create a 3D objects, how to do the 3D modeling in a VR environment. And they also learned how to combine different or separate 3D objects together to build a VR learning environment. And then they explored a more VR environment and different types of VR, AR, MR, or XR. And finally, they will present their VR creation using the presentation environment that we created for them. So this kind of VR presentations or VR instructional design courses is something that we can do at SLIM, because I believe that a lot of my students, they mentioned they were library employees or librarians. They mentioned that they offer programs, different programs at libraries to attract young people. So if we can teach them the VR construction skills so that they can offer their own VR building or VR learning programs at libraries, then I think those kind of more up-to-date programs may attract more young people to visit their libraries. Okay, and then the second idea is a VR online orientation and a VR graduation ceremony that we can offer our students. As you know, the SLIM is currently a completely 100% online. At least for the master's program, it's completely online. So if we can offer VR online orientation or VR graduation ceremonies, that will give our students a better sense of belongings and a better sense of immersion. Right. And at my job talk, I talked about I introduced you about the VR online orientation, and just a few minutes ago, I demonstrated our VR graduation ceremony. Creating this kind of things is not a is not that difficult. I mean, the 3D modeling is not difficult. It just took some time, and then we can allow the students sign into the VR graduation ceremony or sign into the online orientation. And I believe, I believe the students will like it. But of course, we can give the students choices. Some students may be more tech savvy, and some students may not want to use the VR technology that much. So we can, of course, we can offer them different options. If and I mean, it's complete up to them to attend or not. And actually, I mean, this is the VR online orientation that I showed my slim colleagues before. I mean, so I mean, of course, this is at the University of Missouri, so we can go inside the. I mean, students can walk inside the room and visit different offices and visit different professors. Like here, the students will go into a professor's office, and then the professor is sitting there saying hi to the students, and the students can click on the computer monitor to find the professor's research interest or other information about the professor, and then take notes, right? So, I mean, this is, oh wow, let me stop the video. So through this kind of virtual interactions, our SLIM students can have a better understanding of our program, what the resources our program offer to them. I mean, especially offered to online students, and to know better about our professors, what our research interests are, what courses we teach, right? And actually, in my literature review, I found this interesting articles. This article was authored by our SLIM colleagues, Dr. Valenti and Dr. Land and Dr. Wang. Okay, so this is a previous VR student orientation articles. I mean, it was a study conducted at SLIM, and the study was conducted in 2019 and was published in 2020. And in this study, they also mentioned that how students would like to use a VR online orientation to get more familiar with our SLIM programs. Yeah. And then more other programs is like a VR learning program in the WAW library, and a VR library for LIS student to explore and practice library duties. Like in a library, we have different decks, we have different bookshelves, we have a circulation desk, we have a book return desk, right? So we can create all these different sections of a library in the VR environment, so that our students can practice their like library beauties or explore the things. And I think it's also interesting for students to create their ideal library environment in the VR, so that I mean that will that may foster their creativity, which is one of my research direction. I study creativity. I study people's creativity, and we can also help our students to practice what they can do in a library, right? And then a VR conference for ALA or ALIS, Virtual Annual Convention. I mean, if we can I mean, if we need to do some virtual conference again, we can use the VR system to create a virtual conference. This is something I would like to do in the future, but not now, because creating a VR conference requires more technology and more time commitment into this. So this can be listed as a long-term plan, not a recent plan. Okay. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much. If you want to contact me, please send emails to me. Yeah, to my email address, and I'll be like to take any questions or have more discussion with you. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or want to have a discussion on anything, any previous demonstrated topics, or any of your ideas, thoughts? Let me see the chat area. please elaborate on the VR factors seem to contribute directly in the gains of self. Also curious if the research team was able to compare these gains to another non-VR student population. VR factors seem to contribute most directly to gain the self-efficacy and motivation. Oh, I see. Okay, so the VR factors include, and one factor is I will only give you some examples. One factor is their previous VR experience. I mean, if students have a previous VR experience, then they would have a higher self-efficacy in succeeding doing the VR practice. Like students, if they play a lot of VR gaming, or maybe not a VR, but a 3D gaming on a game console or on their PCs, and that will give them more self-efficacy to and motivation to succeed in the VR practice. And then another factor is their previous knowledge level, because if they have a higher previous knowledge levels, like if they do better in the previous knowledge test, then they will have more self-efficacy. Yeah, so I mean, like content knowledge levels or previous VR experience, these will impact their self-efficacy and motivation to use the VR as a practice tool. And about the compare of the gains with a non-VR group. Okay, so I think I introduced when I demonstrated the VR patient encounter project, because we had 83 students who participated in the VR practice, and 47 students who chose not to, because we leave the options to them. So 47 students chose not to participate in the VR practice. And we found the 83 students who participated in the VR performed better in their real patient encounter test than the 47 peers who did not choose to practice in the VR. Yeah.
Thank you for that response. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. If I could go back to the first part of my question, I'm wondering, as you and your research team evaluated the salient factors or the core factors of this VR experience, were you able to identify anything unique about the VR experience itself that students said, this part, this aspect of the VR experience makes me feel self-efficacious and I'm motivated? Did the students comment on those types of things, or did your quantitative instrument parse those out?
I see. So you're asking which part, is there a specific part that makes students feel highly self-efficacious? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, as opposed to just having general gains. I'm wondering if they would attribute any causality or anything in particular about the VR that forced them to experience unusual gains in self-efficacy and motivation.
Okay. Let me see how I can answer your question. I mean, in the VR clinic part, we did not have that specific kind of part. I mean, the entire conversation practice was very attractive to students, and the students seem to think like the overall. I mean, the entire conversation made them feel self-efficacious. I mean, during the VR practice, but in the VR online orientation part, I mean, like here, as what I'm showing you in on the screen, this is the VR online orientation part. I mean, we designed 5 different activities for students to experience our program and the people inside our program. So these activities were quite different, including the first activity is to meet your professor. The second activity is to find a device in our lab. It's like a hide and seek game to find the device inside the building. The third activity is to find how to apply for conference financial support. I mean, it's more like to get familiar with the procedure. The third activity is more like a scavenger hunt. You're gonna have to go around the building and find different rooms, and inside different rooms, you will meet a person. The person will give you different learning tips or learning resources. And the fifth activity also help the students to gain learning resources and learning tips, but the students will stay at one location, one place to get everything instead of going around the building like what they do in the fourth activity. I mean, for these different activities, different students have very different perceptions about their likeness or dislikeness of these activities. And we found that these different activities will impact their self-efficacy. So basically, I mean, averagely or generally, the first activity make them feel the best. The first activity is to meet your professor. So when they meet their professors, when they go to the professor's office rooms and talk to the professor, get to know the professor's background, and this increase their self-efficacy in the activities. Impact their self-efficacy in succeeding in our department the best. And then the fourth activity, the scavenger hunt, also impacted their self-efficacy in understanding or in knowing our program better, because they have to go to different rooms, different offices inside the building. So that'll help them to get more familiar with the environment, with the building, and also they also got a lot of learning tips or learning resources. Then that means they knew better about our programs and what kind of support we have for them. While for finding the device had a very small impact on their self-efficacy, because most of our students were online students, so they didn't think finding such a device will help them a lot in succeeding in the program's learning, because they are online students, so they are not be able to get access to a physical device. So so probably we can speculate that a different learning activity designs in a VR environment will impact the students' self-efficacy and motivation, to use that and to their academic success.
Thank you very much. Yes, those are helpful comments, and thank you for a very interesting presentation.
No problem. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Okay, do we have any other questions? Yeah, and I can show you more about the environment. Yeah, so we just created things like here. And this is our computer lab. It's also a lounge for students to talk, discuss. Okay, Andrew, do you have any?
Well, I was just going to ask you to tell us again, because I think you were talking about some fairly considerable investment of time to develop VR environments. So if I've got it right, the patient one was a 10-month project to develop the VR environment. Is that correct?
You mean which one? The patient part?
Yes, the patient part.
Yeah. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah. So did I pick up correctly that it took 10 months to program the virtual reality environment?
Oh no, not the patient. The cave. The cave. It took us 10 months.
That's 10 months. Okay, right. That makes a little more sense. But how long did it take to generate the patient portal?
Oh, this one. This one, it was fast. It was, I mean, the code, I can show you a little bit the code here. Let me see if I can open the code. Oh, my current account cannot open the code. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, creating this environment, I mean, creating such a room, it took me like 1 weekend to create such a room. And then you will see for the codes, there are about 600, maybe more than 600 lines of codes, and creating those codes it's also not difficult. It may only took 1 afternoon if I can search on the internet and find how other people write those codes. And then most of the codes are just repeated codes. I mean, we just copy and paste. So we just write down the core codes and then we can copy and paste them. Yeah. So, I mean, creating the VR patient encounter, it's not a very difficult. I mean, yeah, the actual difficult part is to optimize the conversation experience, because as I demonstrated to you, when I asked the wrong question, when my keyword did not trigger the right response, the patient will just remain silent, right? So the students will feel very weird. Why the patient didn't respond to me? Yeah. So the really difficult part is how to make the responses more diverse. So that's what we are exploring now, because we found ChatGPT is very good at responding questions. So whatever questions you pose to, you throw to it, it will give you a very human-like answer, right? So we're trying to connect our virtual avatar to ChatGPT, and we'll send the students questions to ChatGPT through the VR avatar, and then the ChatGPT will provide the answer through the virtual avatar. So the students actually feels like they are talking with the virtual avatar, but actually at the backstage they are talking with ChatGPT. So we want to do this, but our current platform does not support these functions. So we have to switch to a different platform. We are exploring 2 platforms. One is Unity, and the other one is Unreal. So these are 2 famous game engines, and which both allows us to connect our virtual patient with to ChatGPT or other language models.
Okay, so you're actually looking at ways so that rather than you having to generate the code to respond, you're trying to tie into AI to let AI and the people who've already written that code to respond to do the response.
Yes, we are not going to build such an AI model, because building such an AI model is out of our ability. And the ChatGPT is already a well-trained model with more than 30 billion parameters. And for our codes, we have how many keywords we collect? We have only 127 or 130 keywords. So that is no match to the parameters numbers of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is already a well-trained model. So we are not going to, and we do not have the technology or the resources to create our own AI model. No.
But at the moment, you're limited. I think you said your platform won't allow you to connect out.
Yes. By using Unity or Unreal, of course we can connect the virtual patient to ChatGPT.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I think it's almost 3, and if you have no more questions, then I think this will be the end of the webinar, and I hope everyone have a good rest of the day.